Greetings Internet, the time has come. We must talk about Star Trek Discovery. There's no way around it, there will be spoilers in this video. If that's not what you want, then please leave now. You have been warned. I was originally going to do a video after the very first episode of Star Trek Discovery to, give my first impressions, but that episode really didn't reflect the series as a whole. It was more of a prequel to the series. It didn't even introduce all of the main characters we'd be seeing, and we didn't even see the USS Discovery in that episode. So I decided I would give it a little more time to see how things developed, and after each episode I thought, shall I do the video this week? No, I should maybe I'll see where this is going, and to the point where it's got all the way now to the mid-season finale, and at this point I have to make the video. I will say it looks amazing. It has great acting, great sets, great special effects. You can see that they have spent a lot of money on this and spent it well. There are plenty of good things you can say about the production, and some of the themes of the episodes have been interesting. We have the first gay male couple to be main characters and not just a one-off thing. It is a fantastic, well-made science fiction television programme, but it doesn't in any way, shape or form at all feel like Star Trek to me. Let's start really simple with the theme music. Every Star Trek series we've had so far has had an instantly identifiable theme music, which is easily hummable. But for Star Trek Discovery, the theme is just a mess. It sounds like a mish of other popular themes at the moment and doesn't really invoke any kind of feeling, and then it's got the standard Alexander Courage fanfare tacked on the end, and it means nothing to me. The Star Trek Enterprise theme song is one of the most universally hated themes in TV history. I prefer it to the Star Trek Discovery's nonsense. Some shows have great themes which I will watch every time I watch an episode. Others have terrible ones which I will just skip. This one is definitely a skip. It's overly long, completely not memorable, and the visuals that go with it are completely uninspiring as well. And it seems like over half the credits during that are for executive producers, which just screams too many cooks. So at the beginning of each episode, you're already not in the Star Trek mood. It just feels wrong. Really, my main complaint is where in time they have chosen to set the series. Let's have a quick look at the Star Trek timeline from 2150 to 2410. In 2151, we have the launch of the NX-01, which is Star Trek Enterprise. 2265-ish, James Kirk takes command of the USS Enterprise for the original series. 2364, the USS Enterprise D is launched at the beginning of Star Trek The Next Generation. 2369 is when Deep Space Nine starts. 2371, Voyager gets lost in the Delta Quadrant. 2378, Voyager comes back. 2379, Star Trek Nemesis, the last of the Next Generation films. 2387, Spock goes back in time and creates the whole J.J. Abrams universe. And finally, 2409 is everything that's currently taking place in the Star Trek Online game, which isn't exactly canon, but it's the only thing that's currently taking place in the sort of future of the main Star Trek universe at the moment. And Star Trek Discovery is currently sitting here in 2256. And that brings with it all manner of continuity issues. We've got this super fancy looking starship with technology no one's ever seen before, alien races no one's ever seen before, 3D holograms and super cool visual effects and things. But this is a ship that exists in the same fleet as the original Enterprise does. The original series may not take place until a few years after this, but the Enterprise itself was already launched back in 2245. We've got Spock's parents who have suddenly got an adopted human daughter that we've never heard of before. But of course that's not the first time Spock's had a mysterious sibling appear that we've never heard of before.
You're a Vulcan.
I don't understand what the obsession is with that particular era of Star Trek. For me, that's not important to what Star Trek is about. It's about a utopian view of the future. And as we in real life rapidly catch up to that future, it makes less and less sense as from a story point of view. The story set in a time when Kirk is obviously alive. Depending on what references you take, he's probably a lieutenant on the USS Farragut at this point. It's like continuity is always already a bit skewy in that area. But that fact that just means that the longer Star Trek Discovery runs, the more and more likely they're going to be unable to resist referencing that fact, or even possibly recasting a third actor in that series, because there's no way Chris Pine would turn up. Do they want to be an interesting science fiction show telling stories that make you think, or do they just want to be an action show that's relying on nostalgia and pastiche? And unfortunately, I think it's the second one, and that may well work commercially. And for people who only have a passing knowledge of Star Trek and, have only heard of Kirk and Spock, then I guess they will probably enjoy it. But for people who, like me, who have seen everything Star Trek, it just feels like a mess. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the universe. It's trying to insert itself into this existing continuity while at the same time completely ignoring that continuity, which for a long-time fan just comes across as jarring and doesn't really make any sense. There have only really been two story points which actually tie it to that era, as I mentioned earlier, Spock's parents being involved, and also the rather odd choice of including the character of Harry Mudd. It's like, for me, of all the people you could have included from the original series, why would you pick one of the most annoying people from stupid episodes that I don't really like? Although I will admit the portrayal of that character in Star Trek Discovery is far superior to it was in the original series. But it's just two really minor connections, and without that you could probably shift the whole thing to like the 27th century, and it would be so much more better for that. But if you still wanted the odd link back to the original series, there are various time-travelling characters you could reference, and there are various other characters which are also long-lived. Brief aside, let's talk about the Klingons, because the main story thread of the entire series is that we're currently at war with the Klingons. I'm not going to dwell too much on the look of the Klingons. Their look is stupid, but they've never had a consistent look throughout Star Trek anyway. I love the fact that someone once took the time to create the entire Klingon language. I did once own the Klingon dictionary, although I don't have a copy anymore. But the decision to have the Klingons actually speak Klingon all the time, subtitled, it's just painful to listen to, though. It's so slow and weirdly phrased, and luckily that seems to have been used less and less as episodes went by, but at the beginning it was just so tedious. Then let's talk swearing, which is something I really couldn't give a fuck about in my daily life, but to hear it suddenly in Star Trek just takes me completely out of it. It feels wrong.
You guys, this is so fucking cool. So sorry.
No, cadet. It is fucking cool.
It's only in the one episode, and I just don't understand why they would go for that, except for just to be edgy for some reason. Sure, there have been examples of swear words in Star Trek before, but it's usually played off for comedic value. It's never been so blatant. And in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, Kirk has to explain to Spock what swearing is. Like it's not something that exists in the 24th century.
Your use of language has altered since our arrival. It is currently laced with, shall I say, more colorful metaphors. Double dumbass on you, and so forth.
You mean the profanity?
Yes.
That's simply the way they talk here.
So again, we have a jarring break in continuity. And not only that, that instantly gives the whole series a higher rating, which limits access to a new, younger audience. This is never going to get shown in the 6 o'clock tea time BBC 2 slot, where I first discovered The Next Generation when I was a teenager. Although, of course, I'm sure the younger generations discover TV series in completely different ways these days, but the point still stands. If a sensible parent has parental controls are turned on so that young children can't watch things they're not supposed to, then they will not be able to see this series and discover Star Trek. And that is not even mentioning the Klingon boobs we got in the context of a rape scene, which just isn't the kind of family-friendly adventure entertainment utopia that Star Trek seems like it should be to me. And then to top it off, we have the USS Discovery's main feature, which is the Spore Drive, which can apparently use the mycelium network to hop anywhere in the known universe because... what? But because we already know that this technology has never existed in any of the other series, means it's going to go horribly wrong by the end of the season, probably, which makes it entirely pointless, and not only that, the effect of it doing it looks comically stupid. Give me a nice engaged to warp any day. So yeah, in summary, I have extremely mixed feelings towards Star Trek Discovery, as you might have gathered. Have you seen it? What did you think? Tell me about it in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.